We'll just leave it. Whatever. Okay, so let's look at this here. But, alright. So, worst sub in the game. We're gonna do it real quick. It's gonna hurt. We're gonna get it over with. Where the hell is it? There it is. We're gonna do point sensor first. Now, I saw a lot of people talk about this in Twitch chat today because people were using Neo Machine, but point sensor has almost no utility and nothing that it does. It purely locates someone. If you compare that to the utility of any other sub on this game, it literally just does less by so much of a degree that it's completely dog shit. That is why point sensor is bad. Not that it does nothing. No, it does something. Every sub does something. But how little this thing does compared to every other sub is massive. I don't even know how they could go around buffing this thing. It's crazily difficult, but they should at the very least make it slightly more potent. But next, Toxic Mist and Sprinkler. Both of these subs have extremely niche levels of use. Sprinkler is generally pretty decently useful in the past because it painted well, but they gutted this thing's paint by so much that it's like literally just less than other bombs. And on top of that, it paints super slow if you leave it out. So if you want a quick burst of paint, bombs are better, and if you want long-term paint, it's not even going to paint that well. You're better off holding something like a zone with something like an ink mine than you're going to be with the sprinkler that sits in a hard-to-reach position. It just has way too little paint. Toxic Mist is just really easy to avoid and go around. I feel like if it had some kind of effect, like if you got hit by the mist, and then were able to move around just fine, then I think it would be good. But the thing is right now is that it's so easy to avoid. The niche use this has is generally on places where you can throw it so someone can't jump across a gap. This is particularly useful in Rainmaker because there are some things like the Mako Mart left side jump where the Rainmaker wants to push that path because it's the best path by far. And you just absolutely can't do it. Alright, next, we're going to get decent subs. So these are subs that have a little bit of use, but are still not the greatest. So that means we got these three out here. We got Wall, we got Mine, we got Curling Bomb, and we got, yeah. So Mines are actually a fairly solid sub. I actually might put them higher, but we'll see. I'm going to order these tiers as well, so I'm going to have orders in the tiers, but Curling Bomb is the only bomb that's seen as not too good. But if anything, I still think it's a fine sub. It has decent paint. It has a decent explosion. You can vary the explosion size a bit. So it's fine. It has alright usage. But it's just not on too much that's, like, great anyway. But it's fine. It has good paint. It has good poking tool. Like, it has use. Wall, it's only useful sometimes and for some weapons. Particularly things like Firefin. But, you know, if you set it up in the right situation, it still has use. The main thing is, besides setting it up for self-defense, you're just not really often using that. Which is very similar to Ink Mine. But Ink Mine is more... I'd argue Ink Mine's more useful, because setting it up in something like a zone just generally gives a lot of value. Like, you can stall it out, you can get damage, like... These subs have plenty of use. Like, I'd argue the gap between B and C tier is, like, there's a gap here. So keep that in mind. Like, the utility and usefulness of subs goes drastically up from these two tiers. Alright, so next up, we get to the actual good sub weapons now. Now we're on, like, actually good subs, and we get Autobomb and Beacon. So Autobomb and Beacon are pretty good. Autobomb is a decent bomb. It's not as good as the other lethal bombs, but it's still absolutely free lethal damage that they have to avoid. It has really good location usage. You can force people to move a bit or to reveal their location. And it only uses 55% of the ink tank, So it's not really too high commitment. It's overall like an alright sub. The only main issue with it is the explosion is so small and the whiting frames are so large that it's a bit of a commitment if you're playing a weapon that isn't ink efficient. So I feel like the sub would be better on weapons that aren't ink heavy, like shooters, but it's not really on many of those besides 89. And 89 is just not that good a main weapon. It just doesn't work too well because K-Shot's better. Alright, so now we have to the subs everyone's expecting. So, oh, and Burst Bomb. I almost forgot Bomb. I would say Beacon's slightly more useful because Beacon is just really useful for getting back in. It's really useful for keeping momentum. Like, it's just generally a really useful sub. It's a shame it's not on a good weapon because it's really useful for aggressive play, but unfortunately, it's just not really on anything that's too good, but it's still a really good sub. And then Burst Bomb, of course, is basically just guaranteed instant damage or paint. Not really an insane amount of it, but still a good bit. And then, whoops, wrong button. And then we have the bombs, and this is what everyone's expecting. So we got Torpedo, Splat Bomb, and Suction Bomb. And I would say... Alright, I'm going to do this order. I'm going to say, yeah, it tells location of nearby players. Yeah, that too. But anyway, Torpedo. Torpedo is really useful for the damage combos it has with the rolled Torpedo. It has a really good hitbox, it has consistent feet painting, and it's a really good distraction. It basically can really hurt slower weapons because they have to pay attention to it. However, I'd say in the end the lethal bombs are better just because of how much more pressure they have, and they're much more better at forcing out of position. Like, you have to pay attention to Torpedo, but paying attention to Torpedo is one thing. Having to move because of these bombs is another. Granted, Torpedo has way more range and utility, so I'd say these are very, very even, but I'd say Suction's slightly better than Splat, and Splat ever so slightly better than Torpedo. Purely because Suction's damage is really good, and then Splat's pretty good as well. Takura TV, thank you so much for the raid. Yo, hello everyone. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. How was your stream? How was your stream, man? But yeah, welcome in. And now, we're going to add a row above. This should just be absolutely no fucking contest, but obviously Fizzy is the best sub-weapon in the game. I have no idea how anyone could ever think otherwise. This thing does so much, it's insane. You can get a paint, like, you can get a trail of paint. It has more range than other bombs. It has some of the best damage of other bombs. It breaks objects like Barella Shield instantly, which is better than Suction. It's 3 explosions, so it has really good paint, really good radius damage, and it can force kills. It's lethal, so it can actually kill things. Like, it's just, there's so much this sub can do. On top of that, it doesn't take that much ink, and you can use double of it without committing 2 Piers of Gear, like for the other lethal bombs. This thing is so good that K-Machine is used despite having Splashdown, because Fizzy Bomb is just that good. So yeah, Fizzy Bomb, best sub in the game. No fucking question. Best sub in the game. Alright. Let's get some rows below and do specials. So, I'm gonna do X in this nice blue color, because I kind of like it. We'll set up a specials list here. But yeah. Fizzy has 2 different hits. One of them does 35 and one of them does 50. So you need 3 hits to kill generally, because people use 1 sub of bomb defense, which will make the 250 damage hits not kill. Unless if they're weak slightly. Alright. I did S+, but we don't have S+ in the other one. My bad. We'll change that. I don't know if I'll need as many tiers for this one, though, but I'll make it just so it looks even. Oh, whoops, we made 2 rows. And we'll put this as D. There we go. Only 2 of the weapons are good for it. Bamboo Machine, yeah. Cluna exists. Cluna's not very good. It's okay on a few places, though. Alright, so we got all of the specials here. So let's get the easy one out of the way. There's really not much discussion that needs to be had here. These specials are pretty bad. We all know why they're bad. I don't think there's any point of discussing. In fact, I'm even going to put a gap. I'm not going to put anything in C tier because there's such a gap between these 2 specials and all of the other ones that I want it to be very clear how much of a difference there is. So, we're going to put nothing in C, and we're going to have a gap because I think that best represents it. Alright, now, let's get some of the more niche specials here. So, Curling Rush. Yeah, I think just Curling Rush here. Curling Rush is pretty niche, but it's alright. It's much better in zones because it's really good paint. Outside of that, the other bomb rushes are generally better. Alright, what do we want to do next? I think we can do Burst Rush. Do Baller solid. Hammer. Might move Baller up. We'll see. We got Ultra Stamp here, definitely. We got Stingray. Alright. Actually, we'll cover Baller and Bubble Blower last. We'll cover Baller and Bubble Blower last, and I'll explain why, but we're going to leave these 2 specials for now. Just name the D tier, you know, why are they here tier? I don't know why. Baller B? Nah, Baller is definitely not B tier, but I'll explain Baller and Bubble Blower later. I'll explain these 2 subs later, but these 2 specials later, but I'm going to rate them last, and I'll explain why. But Hammer really struggles at dealing with some of the options in this game. Just because there's so much mobility with a midline meta, closing the gap is difficult. Ray is really difficult to secure much. It's really just good with C-Jet because C-Jet can spam it, which will force another special. But the special itself is not that good. Like, the special's fine. This is still more than viable. It's still like a solid special. But it's really just as good as it is because C-Jet gets so many of them. It's quantity more than quality. And you have to keep that in mind. Burst Rush is just a solid special. It's just kind of like your average special, I guess. It's solid. It can paint a little bit. It can get picks. It can pressure. It's pretty average. Alright, Inkjet I'd put up here. Booyah Bomb. Rain. Maybe not Rain. We might need another tier. You know what? We're going to move these down because we kind of need room. So, we need room. Never mind. We'll ignore the gap. We'll just... There we go. That's better. Okay. So, Booyah Bomb, Inkjet, and yeah, we'll do that. So, Booyah Bomb and Inkjet, I think are good specials, but I think they're still more situational. I still think the high mobility and survivability, a lot of the weapons in the meta right now still hurt these. And I think these specials really struggle to deal with armor. So that's why I'm putting them where they are. I think these specials, like Missiles, Rain, and the Bomb Rushes, deal with armor really well. And I don't think these specials can deal with armor really well. And having your special be able to deal with armor is really important. These are still really good specials, but I would not have more than one of them in a team comp. All of these specials I would be fine having 2 of in a team comp, but I would not have more than 2. I would not have more than 1 of any of these specials in 90% of comps. If you're against like a tent team or something that doesn't have things to deal with the jet, or if it's some maps for Booyah, you could do it. But overall, I think you would have one of these. Okay, so Bomb Rushes, Rain, Armor. So I think this is pretty simple, but rather self-explanatory. I think Armor is the best special in the game right now. I think armor is really useful. It's just in general really good right now. It deals with a lot of the weapon's weaknesses and it synergizes with other specials. It's basically the thing you can use to initiate anything or survive anything. It's not like insanely overpowered, but it is still just really good in pretty much any team-based situation. As for these specials, bomb rushes leave you vulnerable, but they can still be useful for stalling out armor. I think they're probably the best special at dealing with armor. We have rain, which is like the bomb rushes, but you have less versatility in where you can put them in exchange for less vulnerability. And then Ten Missiles is really simple. Ten Missiles is just another team-based special like armor. It's really good for displacing people. I think armor is better because most of the weapons in the meta are mobile. If there were more slower weapons in the meta, I would put missiles on par with armor because missiles I think is better against those weapons. But with more mobile weapons, I think armor is better. Okay, so Bubble Blower and Baller. Now, I'm going to rate Bubble Blower here, but keep in mind, Bubble Blower, if it's on a weapon with a bomb, is arguably X tier, because that gives it way more use. So I'd say K Junior Bubbles is here. K Junior Bubbles is the best special in the game. Foil Squeezer Forge Pro is here, just under armor. And all Tent Bubbles and most of the other solid bubble weapons are here. And then if you have something like Cherry H-Tree Bubbles, they're around here. So it depends on the weapon, but I guess for most bubble weapons, it's about in this tier. As for Baller, I think Light Baller is S tier, I think Medium Baller is A tier, and I think Heavy Baller is B tier. So we're going to put it in A tier, but keep in mind I would put the Light Baller a tier higher and the Heavy Baller a tier lower. And that is everything. So, to pan out, and there you go. Subs and Specials tier list is complete. Missiles not X tier as well. I tried to explain it earlier, but just to recap, with more mobile weapons, armor is more useful, and missiles is better against slower weapons, and because the meta is a lot of more mobile weapons, armor is better. If the meta were slower weapons, I would say missiles is even. However, because everything's really mobile, missiles doesn't get as big an impact, though they're still a very good special. But yeah. That's about everything. But just keep in mind, bubbles, things like Cherry, it's a tier lower. K Junior, it's a tier higher. Everything else, it's S. Baller, the Light Baller is up a tier, and the Heavy Baller is down a tier. And yeah. Was this game at its prime when Stingray was meta? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is a very incorrect statement. Alright, well, I think I'm about to wrap it up here.